have any ideas of the non-neuronal cells in the CNS? What are the neuroglial cells? What are their types? And what are their functions? How are they helping inside the CNS? How are they working? What is all about the blood-brain barrier? What is it composed of? And what is its function? Well, all the secrets and all the answers to these questions will be unfolding in today's episode. So without any delay, let's get started. Welcome all to IS Pharmacology Difficult Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Radhika Vijay, MBBS MD Pharmacology, and this is the audio hub to get the best simplified basic tips, strategies, methods, and lots of ideas to learn better, understand better, and make your concepts crystal clear. If you really find, and if there's a question hovering in your minds, is pharmacology difficult? Lend your ears for a while and let in the magic of knowledge. So, the neuroglial cells, the vascular elements, and the cells consisting of the CSF, that is the cerebrospinal fluid, all form together the large intracerebral ventricular system. Now this intracerebral ventricular system, along with the meninges that cover the brain, they envelop the brain and they also contain the cerebrospinal fluid, that is the CSF, capital CSF. The non-neuronal cells, they are the neuroglial cells. They are in fact the supporting cells for the neurons. What is their function? Well, it is to keep them intact, in place, to nourish the neurons with nutrients and oxygen, and to keep away the neurons from the disease-causing agents, and to maintain the signals between the neurons. So we can say that apart from the older views of sheer support, they also aid in the signal transduction according to the latest researches. Now, coming over to the classification of the neuroglial cells, well, the classification of the neuroglial cells can be in the form of microglial cells or the macroglial cells. Do you know about the macroglial cells? Well, these are the much abundantly found astrocytes. The astrocytes serve to envelop the synaptic complexes. They also serve as metabolic supporting systems. They also serve to furnish the energy roles. They ensure the proper vascular supply to the neurons. And they also help to maintain the neuronal environment up to the mark by removal of the excess ions and the neurotransmitters. So such a lot of functions, they are done by the astrocytes. The other macroglia cells, they are the oligodendroglia cells, the ependymal cells and the radial cells. Now we have heard about the myelin sheath. Myelin is the electrically insulating cover of the axons. It allows the action potential propagation through its structure. And do you know how it is made? Well, it is produced by the oligodendroglial cells. Coming over to the ependymal cells. The spinal cord and the ventricular systems, they are coated with the ependymal cells. And these ependymal cells, they are also responsible for the secretion of the cerebrospinal fluid, that is the capital CSF. The function of the radial cells is in the form of neuroprogenitors and also as scaffolds. What else we gonna know about the CNS structure? The immune cells in the CNS, they are the microglial cells. They serve as macrophages. They are actively involved in the damage to the neurons, especially during inflammation. Now, can you imagine what will happen if these microglial cells, they become scarce or deficient? Well, it may result in many variety of pathologies of the brain and the central nervous system. And can you imagine what could be the situation in the states of neuroinflammation? Now, during the neuroinflammation, the ratio of the microglia cells to the astrocytes, it finally decides the extent of harm or protection to the brain. So we can say that one cannot deny the important role of neuroglial cells, whether it's macroglial cells or it's microglial cells, especially in the depth, regulation, and the functioning and the signaling in the central nervous system. Next, we gotta chit chat about the blood-brain barrier. Well, what is a blood-brain barrier? It is a wall or kind of separating structure between the peripheral cells, the peripheral blood capillaries, and the central nervous system. Do you know about its composition? The composition of blood-brain barrier is very unique and is importantly comprised of the endothelial cells, astrocytes, the pericytes, all compactly packed together on a non-cellular basement membrane. Let's get to know about the functioning of the blood-brain barrier. Why do we need the blood-brain barrier? The primary function of the blood-brain barrier is to stop the unwanted and the large chemicals or toxins and the substances entering into the brain. But lipophilic substances, they can easily pass through the blood-brain barrier and they can be stored inside the brain. The carrier cells within the blood-brain barrier, they are very capable enough to carry the amino acids and the glucose, etc., the most important elements which are required for the proper functioning of the brain. One of the examples is the amino acid carrier, which is responsible for carrying the levodopa across the brain, and that is very essential during the treatment of Parkinsonism. So that's all from my end. We studied about the non-neuronal cells, we studied about the blood-brain barrier, and we got to know a lot about the structure and the functioning inside the central nervous system. I'm gonna give you a little hint about my next episode. It's gonna be all about the chemical neurotransmitter signaling inside the central nervous system. A kind of an introduction and a quite intensive peeping inside the nitty-gritty functioning of the chemical neurotransmission signaling of the central nervous system. So we'll be covering the structure also and the process also. For all the updates and latest episodes of my podcast, do visit www.ispharmacologydifficult.com, where you can also sign up for a free monthly e-newsletter of mine, that is Pharmacology Further newsletter. It comprises of a lot of medical updates, drug updates, and a lot of other sections like my writing updates, some nutrition talks, and also some off-the-cuff talks. You can follow me on different social media like Twitter, Insta, Facebook, and LinkedIn. They all are with the same name, is Pharmacology Difficult. If you're listening for the first time, do subscribe and follow whatever platform you are consuming this episode. Stay tuned. Do rate and review on iTunes, Apple Podcast. Stay safe, stay happy, stay enlightened. Thank you.